welcome everybody to the last session of today in here. Have you had a good day so far? Excellent, marvelous. So my name is Charlie Hull, also known as the Search Juggler. I've been a search consultant for over 25 years, and I'm very pleased today to be able to host this panel. And I'm going to introduce my panelists in a second. Well, they're going to come and introduce themselves, but please give them a round of applause as they come on stage. Right. So the theme of our panel is AI is here. Is it time to throw away our search engines? And please do take a seat.
All right.
Yes.
Is that one reserved for you? No, I think
I'll sit in the middle. Probably that's the easiest thing, yes.
we did some gaming with
I'll
chairs.
I'll sit in the middle.
You should have put one chair.
Sorry, it's going flawlessly, by the way. It's all working. Okay. So, I'm going to start off with our lovely panelists who are going to very briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll crack on with some questions. Hopefully this will be a bit of fun for the end of the day, and informative, of course. So let's start with Atita.
Oh boy. I hope this is working. Yes, it is working. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is awake. My name is Atita, and I've been working in search and information retrieval, NLP, and kind of slipped into the AI world for past 20 years. I've solved many complex problems, and I think attaching business revenue with all the fancy search and AI stuff is like my expertise, and I would stop there. Joe?
Perfect. Yeah, my name is Kristian Bergum. I'm the CEO of Hornet. So really glad to be here. Oh, you have your own mic.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny. I am a senior developer relations from Quadrant, which is a vector search engine written in Rust and an open source. And I somehow always ended up working with search, even though I studied machine learning, which is now is pretty tightly connected, I think, judging by the conference. So I'm in the right place, right here.
Hi, everyone. Vector Podcast is here. No, Dima Khan. I'm product director at Ivan today, managing open search offering. I've been doing software engineering, mostly search-centric, for maybe 16 years. Nowadays, I'm doing more of product management. I sort of did a pivot in my career and still enjoying it. Yeah, I believe in a format of conversation. I'm really happy to be part of this panel today.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much. So just to review the title of this talk, I just want to say what I wrote in the application so we can center ourselves. So it is a lot of talks, yes. In fact, that's tomorrow's talk, so this is not where I need to be. Right. So AI is here. Do we need to throw away our search engines? And what I thought is we'd have a discussion about whether that's true, whether it's false, whether it's an oversimplistic way to look at things. And the questions really are, why do we even need traditional search? Now AI can do everything. Or is there something from that old world of information retrieval and search that we shouldn't ignore? How can we combine old and new? So I think the first question I'm going to ask our panel is, what is the one thing, maybe the one old school search technique that is most often overlooked when we're building modern AI systems? Atita, do you want to kick us off?
I would love to, because that's probably my favorite topic. And I think maybe to give you the answer or present my opinions, I would like maybe to take a little bit of like 2 steps back, because I think why do we even need to discuss or, like talk about this is because I think something that Joe already covered, so more like a recap of your talk, that I'm seeing more use cases for retrieval now, which is what we need to sort of like pay attention to, because I mean memory agents and everything needs sort of like retrieval as well, like to retrieve like the right information, right context as well. So I think something that defines like how right is the information that the agentic or the AI applications need is supposed to be determined by the relevance techniques. And I think that is something that I feel like people often overlook, and I feel like I'm still like very attached to it, like relevance in principle. I mean, not that we have huge sort of like context windows now, so we can stuff everything in. I mean, that's what agents and AI applications usually struggle with. So I feel like relevance and something that we've done pretty much you and me, because we have worked for a company that was known for like relevance. So I feel like that's like one technique that still holds and still, I would say, like has become way more important now.
Yeah, so I think that's great. I largely agree. I think on your question, really the techniques, like more of the traditional techniques, I think, for example, keyword search or traditional lexical representations or sparse representations or whatever you call it, is more powerful now because of agents or AI being able to use it more effectively than humans could do. If you've been using a coding agent and you can watch it, how it greps through your code base, it's a very effective user of that tool. And I think for a classical kind of BM25, we see the same type of behavior where it's really good at searching. So that's kind of one of the classic techniques I think is more powerful now with actually a more powerful user.
Okay. Jenny?
Can I break the rules? Can I name 3?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so from my perspective, 3 old but gold things that are getting reinvented and everybody is publishing about them and oh my god, I discovered a new thing, would be relevant feedback loops, because everybody knows query rewriting and deep research and stuff, but there is much more to it. The second one is MMR, which is a very traditional way to diversify search results, and I think it makes sense in agentic chains of reasoning, so you don't retrieve the same results over the different steps of the agentic search loop. And the third one would be evals, because 2026, we still don't know how to evaluate stuff. It even got worse. I worked at crowdsourcing before, and I think we could reuse a lot of techniques of doing the aggregational like knowledge between different evaluators on simple agents, like some majority voting, some David skin aggregation on all of that stuff. And I think I literally saw people reinventing it. So let's just try to search with the keywords buttons and check what is already invented out there.
Yeah, these are great suggestions. I will not give you an algorithm because I think nowadays you can find a lot of things online. You can chat to your LLM agent as well. But I'll give you one trick that I used myself as a search software engineer back in the days when I ran Apache Solr. The technique was that every time someone asked me a question why this result is in this position, I went back to Solr admin page, which is a UI page, and I pasted that query, and I also pasted a piece of content that it matched. And then I looked at it and I figured out, oh, my tokenizer is doing something wrong here, not intended, in the first place. And so that prompted me to go off and then basically start fixing that part of the pipeline, of the processing pipeline. And I solved a number of problems with this seemingly simple tool, which today I think is underrated. At least I don't see it used too often in some of my practice. In OpenSearch, there is a profile API. I know, Charlie, you've used it in your recent blog post. So yeah, that would be like the lowest level I would go before reading the source code of the engine and still kind of staying on the user kind of side, so being close to the user. And it bubbles up, right? So from there, you can go and start think about, let's say I have a query where I compare two search engines, right? And I give that to my agent. And what it does is that it goes and actually searches that specific query, which will never hit anything because I know that there is no document describing both of these in the same place. Therefore, I have to apply some sort of query understanding to know that these are two keywords, they're separate, so let's also try to search them separately. And agents are becoming more smart in this, of course, but knowing what they do will help you to tune the performance.
That's an interesting point you raised there. I think one of the things I see a lot is people look at their source content, and whether it's a traditional search or agentic or whatever, they look at their source content, and they know that goes into some kind of index, and they assume that all the words in the search content turn up in the same form in the index. And you look in the index, and it's nothing like the source content. There's been lots of stuff that's happened before it's ended up in the index, and it's the source of so many matching problems, because something's been processed to the point that what's in the index is not what you think is in the index.
And if I may add quickly here, we've heard today on another panel here the new pattern where agents will probe your search engine because they didn't find what they are looking for. And the reason why they fail is because they actually don't know they don't know all the limitations of the search engine in the first place. They also don't have a contract for how to use your search engine. That's another problem. But optimizing these things for the agents will probably save their cycles a lot, and therefore the token burn and all other aspects of this new economy that we can actually harness and slow down a little bit on the consumption and make more precise products.
Fantastic, thank you all. So turning this question on its head a little bit, if you've got an existing search application, an old school search application, what are the new AI or AI-derived techniques that can be used to really supercharge that? And I'll say, let's not talk about agents here. Let's talk about enhancing and improving an existing search engine with something that's come out in the last few years. I'm going to come to somebody different to start off with. Joe, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, you need to migrate to Hornet. No, I think some of the new techniques, obviously embedding-based retrieval is quite powerful, especially multimodal data, where you can feed this data through a neural network and obtain a representation. And you can move this representation around in this vector space, and you can retrieve by it. Is obviously a very powerful technique. I mean, if you look at your phone, if you have an iPhone and you go to photos, you can search for beach, etc., which is embedding-based retrieval. So I think if you haven't really looked at embedding-based retrieval already, you should look at it, right, as to complement your existing stack if you can represent it in that engine, or but hopefully migrate to Hornet as soon as you can. Obviously, yeah.
We'll just Atita.
Well, I would say that this hits the right chord because I've quite recently did that. Like I added AI-powered features to an existing search engine. And one of the things that was really, really valuable, I mean, Joe covered that, was multimodal. So I was working on the metadata MDM side of the tool. And most of the time, this kind of an application lacks the metadata that's provided by the source. And you miss the opportunity if you, for example, have content like images or PDFs or videos and audios. So you're very limited. And I think the VLMs and all sort of multimodal models of the recent times have kind of enabled that we cover that gap that earlier we had. So that has definitely been a boon. I mean, that's awesome because when we have more metadata, that enables filtering, and imagine when you're able to semantically search for stuff, which is also something that has been added by the recent features. So more bolting on the semantic understanding on the existing search engine. You could basically extract the filters and these not exactly synthetically, but I mean, it is from the data that's been generated by the multimodal models, is something that can be used as filters to get more precise results.
Okay, fantastic. Dima, you can go next.
Yeah, I agree. Multimodality, when you cross the chasm between text and image, for example, it really feels magical. And I also had experience applying clip model to pictures, and then all of a sudden I can find them because even though I don't have metadata around them, but it does fail on some older photos, captured with some old cameras where precision is not good. So anyway, but that's hopefully you don't have that problem. But even if you stay on the text side of things, I've experimented with computing vectors on the fly. So let's say you get 20 results from your keyword search engine. If you place them on the page following BM25, it may be suboptimal because your query was not keyword search, it was some sort of a question. Now, what you can do is that you can compute embeddings on them before even you go, let's say, and store them in the vector database. You can actually compute them online, and that's quite fast. And then re-rank the results using some sort of a combination of vector similarity and the BM25 similarity. And the results came out to be really, really good. I was really impressed by doing these kind of simple steps, even before venturing into an infrastructure projects of sorts. I was able to improve the perceived relevance for our users. So I think this is quite exciting, maybe underexplored. And also, if you look at engines which run at massive scale, like at TomTom, we've ran, the planet scale geographical search, which has to look at, 2 billion objects on the map all the time, all the languages. It just quadruples in the amount of data you need to traverse. And even there, when we looked at vector search as an experiment, and if you add vectors into the mix, you will be able to answer new beautiful questions like, I want to buy shoes. So nowadays, it's very rare that you go on Google Maps or some other product and you type this kind of query because the paradigm of using that engine taught us that you cannot do that. But all of a sudden, you can cross this boundary and bring completely new experience to your users, which is amazing. The only trick here is that how to stay economical, because if you deploy vector search at scale and you need to be maintain sub-second latency, your vector search will actually eat from the latency budget. And so this is where you then, after seeing the value with vector search, you need to start digging into things like, I think Quadrant is looking at quantization techniques and making sure that you can reduce the storage costs and therefore possibly latency as well.
Yeah.
Jenny.
So, firstly, with vectors, you can do all kinds of searches. You can do the keyword one, you can do the dense one where you need quantizations. If you want something in the middle, I have my favorite topic, which is sparse neural retrieval, which sits in the middle. It's very good for e-commerce. I know e-commerce guys are slightly scared to migrate to the new methods because there are a lot of costs at stake. I'm going to add a little bit oil to the fire. Today I asked Joe what they don't do, and Joe said Hornet doesn't do e-commerce. So if you have e-commerce, migrate to Quadrant. Then what else? But I think we shouldn't deny the fact that there are LLMs and they fix some certain problems which we tried to build around for a long time. For example, all of this typo correction or synonymization or maybe some translation or query routing. I would try to use that because there are horrible regex monsters and Frankensteins built out there in some search engines just to fix these typos. Come on, get over it. LLMs fix it. So I think you need to think about the cost versus migration, whatever ratio, and then think where there is a win, and then just do a perfect combination of whatever you have of these methods, and it's going to work smoothly enough.
Thank you. I think my own opinion is there's a lot of AI techniques that can be used as kind of point fixes. And this is probably less risky than throwing the baby out with the bathwater and just saying, let's get rid of our search engine and just replace it by an AI framework. Try and solve problems rather than just replace everything and hope you've covered all the problems. So I think my next question for the panel is, so maybe a few years ago when all this AI stuff was very new, I know I'm not alone in this. I think a lot of people who've been in search for a while were suddenly a little terrified. We were going to be replaced. We'd have to learn new skills. People wouldn't need search engines anymore. So I'm going to ask the panel if they felt that way, if they shared my feeling about that, and do they still feel that now? Let's start with, I'm going to come with Dima.
Yeah, bit of a personal story. When ChatGPT was released, and I knew that I could instantly jump on it and start like coding, I actually closed the lid of my laptop and I sat there for 3 days, actually in that tremor state that probably I will be obsolete in like a few years, right? Then I overcame that and I thought, okay, let's give it a try, whatever. And yes, I was impressed to a certain point. It was able to generate code. That was miraculous by itself. But as I was digging into this and trying to solve some specific problems that I had at that point, I also saw some limits, right? It was going in loops. It was suggesting some things that didn't work. And I knew the solution, but I wouldn't tell it because I was scared of it replacing me, right? So I was keeping some secrets to myself. But then, yeah, I would explain to it and I say, hey, you know, damn it, like this is how you would solve this, right? And it says, oh, this is a clever solution. I was like, of course it is, because I know I proved it over the years, right? But then as I continued to use these tools, I've realized that I am degrading as a software engineer because I stopped reading the code it produces as much as I would read before. I even trust the tests it writes. But what did happen on the positive side is that I became 10x, probably 10x more productive than I used to be previously. I could code a Swift application and upload it to my iPhone the same evening, which previously would take me months just to study the Swift and understand all the intricacies. So now the limit is more in my own imagination. And the other thing is how much of harness do I apply, what matters for the business that I am in, or maybe the idea that I'm trying to implement. Basically, how to test the thing, how to make sure that it actually works, right? And how to build up on that. But yeah, I would say, I don't think I compete with these systems anymore. I probably compete with people who either use or do not use these tools, if that makes sense. So I don't think we will be extinct, hopefully not, fingers crossed, by these technologies. We should just jump on the wave. It's unstoppable already. So either you do jump or you just left behind. My choice is to try to push myself and stay closer to the wave as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Atita, what do you think?
Well, I would say that luckily I was like very slowly sort of like inducted to this phase, because in 2021 we happened to do like a project where we slowly got inducted to the vectors. And I think so basically seeing that from the other perspective, not from the replacement, but oh my God, I've spent like writing custom plugins and custom code and training ML models to basically do the routing and, you know, kind of like guess the similar words in the session and sort of like understand the semantic meaning of this query and so on and so forth. And now it's just about like leveraging vectors. I can just use it so simply. So I think I probably had a very different feeling that I would not have to do all what I had to like achieve by working so much. So things have become simpler. So I did not really have that phase of like, oh, this is going to replace me. But yeah, I think not in exactly in that phase, not in 2021, but around maybe 2025-ish, when people said like, oh, the agent wave is coming. Agents are going to take away all the things that you've been doing. So I think that's where I probably felt. I think I would say up until like very recently, I had that notion again after I overcame. So I think there's a wave, like it keeps coming and going. And then, you know, once I get sort of like familiar with how the dynamics are working right now, I feel better again. But yeah, I mean, I would say like it happened in the past. And it's sort of like calmed down, but I think it's not something that comes and like goes. It keeps repeating that pattern, I think, at least for me.
Okay. Joe,
you say, Joe?
Yeah, Joe, you've been doing this a very long time. You know, did you ever think you were going to be replaced?
No, I think I've never been afraid of that, but if you look at the technology side of this, I think search is more important now, because if you think about the current model and imagine that there will be an LLM that is perfectly at following instructions, you don't have to append, make no mistakes. It will be just perfect. And because of the nature of the self-attention mechanism in Transformer, they will always be kind of compute bound. So their context window length will always be around the size of one floppy disk, right? About 1.4 megabytes of data. So, and even if you have a perfect model, perfect instruction following, you then turn this problem into like a search problem to figure out what should actually be in the context window of that model, right? And so that means that I think there's a huge opportunity now in terms of if you have search competence to actually build systems that actually work, because search is a huge part of this. And I think now we used to think about search, and we only work with organizations that were powering user kind of consumer-facing products like search, e-commerce, etc. Now, with enterprises actually trying to put agents to work and actually do things with agents, then retrieval becomes a core part of this thing, right? And that means that more organizations will now kind of invest in relevancy and figuring out how to filter those kind of billions of tokens into those 4K tokens that you actually can make the model attend to. So yeah, I'm not worried. I think also there are a lot of companies that have demonstrated that there's a huge surge and interest in the whole kind of retrieval space. So yeah, not worried.
Excellent.
And I'm not like people think that AI will take work away from us, etc., etc. I have a different perspective on that, and that is that now with AI, more organizations will actually hire a software engineer to actually accomplish a lot, because one software engineer can now actually accomplish a lot, right? But you still need someone to maintain these systems and deploy these systems and make security, etc. So, but I think it's more feasible now that a small organization that would not consider hiring a software engineer will actually now hire a software engineer, because that software engineer, together with an armada of coding agents, can actually get a lot of things done. So I have a more positive worldview.
Thank you. Jenny, what do you think?
So I am pretty much agreeing, but I see a little bit of a dissection here. So you have search people like search engineers, and you have search people like search engine builders on this panel. And I think that both won't be replaced, but that's for the different reasons. So I also agree that search is very much needed and it's not going away. I am pretty sure it's going to move closer and closer to LLMs, maybe inside of them at some point, considering how attention works. But when it comes to search engineers, I think it's the same path as for software ones or ML ones. We all became prompt engineers, right? But if you are pretty well versed and you try to learn and to study, I think you can stay. There was a lot of metaphors around waves. I'm good at surfing. I did wake surfing. I'm gonna stay. So should be all right.
Excellent. That's a relief. Next question. So we've got our old school techniques. We've got our new techniques. Have we solved how to combine them? If not else, if not, how else? What else should we be trying to combine them? And I think I'll come back to you, Joe, on this one.
Oh my God!
Sorry.
How much time do we have?
I can.
You can go. No, I don't think it's solved. I think a lot of people try to combine these classic techniques with vector techniques and called it hybrid search and call it a day. And I've been a part of that movement too. But I think there are, in any type of systems, there will be multiple different retrieval arms that can feed into a final kind of ranking layer. And I think, yeah, I agree that this will increasingly be done by the LLM itself. And I think it's like wonderful that you can actually build much greater search experience now if you can afford putting an LLM into that type of system and pipeline. I mean, you did a talk last year where you were breaking search, right? If those companies had invested in some kind of basic LLM, you would have actually increased a lot of kind of query understanding and how to use the technique. So, yeah, I don't think it's solved. I think there's more possibilities to kind of evolve. Yeah.
Dima, what do you think?
He's the podcast host, so we won't get it back now.
Yeah, I was having a chat today with Trey Granger, who created an idea of wormhole vectors. Go look it up if you don't know what it is. But like, if you look at how history has evolved with search, we started with keyword search, which is like inverted index based. It's an old data structure. Then we added vector search, and by design, they are disparate spaces, right? So you have a sparse, multi-dimensional, very high-dimensional space on the keyword search side, where you have a few ones where the keyword is there, and a lot of them are zeros. And then the other one is dense, more compressed. You have less dimensions. And by default, the first one is more precise. The second one is less precise. So it's kind of like giving you more of the similarity to what you're looking for. And when we have these two spaces, we inevitably need to figure out how to combine the results. And therefore, you have your hybrid search techniques, you have hybrid search optimizers, machine learning on top of this, and all of that. To me, it sounds like, because of these historical reasons, we just keep piling things up. And so now we added agents, and now we will have a ton of other problems, but we are still not solving the core issue. And it's my hypothesis that I think we would be better off if we invested into figuring out how to blend these spaces into one. And maybe it's not that impossible. What we need to do for that to happen is probably to step back from these spaces and ask ourselves, can we formulate this mathematically, like differently, right? And merge all the things that we care about into one single space. And I think wormhole vectors is the first kind of like idea towards that, leading us towards that. It doesn't make the spaces one. But for those of you who like to kind of like experiment and like embark on some intellectual problems, maybe it's a good idea to think about, can we merge them? And once we have merged them, probably a lot of problems that we deal today with will go away automatically, like latency. There will probably be new problems, but the latency issues and, you know, do I need to optimize my hybrid merger and all that? By default, it will be solved.
Thank you. Jenny, what do you think?
I don't think we solved anything. I think everything became worse. But let's see. How is it going to evolve? I honestly understood this question slightly different. So my perspective is that we also need to converge. So we need to teach agents about search engineering, and we need to teach search engineers about agents. You bridge the literacy from one side, you bridge it from another. At some point, they're going to meet in the middle, and we're going to get like accuracy of 80%. On the searches, that should be alrighty. So let's see. I'm looking forward to the next year talks and see how everybody is dealing with that. I'm with you.
Excellent. Atita, what do you think?
I think it brings back the memories of multi-objective relevance optimization to me. And if we have not solved that, I wouldn't say this is solved either. And it brings back like so many stories of like, you know, how organically we wanted to blend like these sponsored articles in the case of like e-commerce with the relevant articles, and we could never solve it, right? I mean, no matter what fancy techniques we used. So that's what I feel. It's still like the same way. The objective is like keyword matching and, you know, semantic matching, and then maybe image similarity, video, audio, yada, yada, similarity. Blending it all together, it's just, as Jenny said, it's gotten worse, obviously, but it feels like a similar kind of a problem.
So who thinks reciprocal rank fusion, RRF, which is a common technique, who thinks that's great and should be used? Who has suspicions about it?
I think actually we should use here LLMs a little bit more, because RRF out of the box works not always, even though people think it does. And sometimes you need to weigh different arms based on the how query is more, say, semantic or lexical, for example. And I feel like we could try to use here our agents or whatever, because they are pretty good at classifying the queries by their arms and routing them. And then this fusion based on the query classification might be actually a pretty powerful thing, even though it's pretty basic idea.
So, I mean, the technique I've often seen in real-world implementations is you've got your keyword search and your vector search, and you look at the vector search, and it all seems very clever, but you don't really trust it. So you just put a boost in all the results, 0.01 or something. So all your vector search results are just so far down in the list, it doesn't really matter. You've ticked the box, you've done AI-powered search, fantastic, but you don't trust it enough to make those results anywhere where people can actually see them, so that's fine. No one's going to click on them. Yeah, I've seriously seen that, yeah.
I guess, Jenny, you talked about it to an extent, but like one thing, was it Doug Turnbull that experimented in this space, that if either of these or both of these return suboptimal results in the first place, for whatever reason, maybe you don't have data, maybe you didn't understand the question well and all that, how do you know that this is a suboptimal set that you should actually discard and tell the user that I failed, sorry, try something else? So this is something that is still lacking, and no RRF or other technique will solve this, because these techniques only blend. They don't reason about the intent nor the quality of the results. So I think there is, to your point, Jenny, using LLMs to interpret this, maybe not in real time if you're at high scale, but like as a offline type of test that you can do and reason about the edge cases could be helpful.
I think I had the similar notion, and I think maybe at Mises we drove like a Barcamp topic that we should have alpha optimization, and I benchmarked it. So even blending with like using the degree of like 0.3, 0.7, like this much weightage to lexical and this much weightage to vector, I think it varies so much for the kind of query, and it's very hard to kind of come to a conclusion that this alpha is something that we can configure and it's going to work by default for the entire sort of like set of queries that we are going to get. On your aspect of adding LLM, I think the only concern I have is like the latency. So I don't know if you're good with that. I mean, people have become like a little bit patient all of a sudden. I don't know.
Yeah, I unfortunately agree a lot with Jenny here. I think we can decide. Yeah, it's pretty good. We should talk. No, I mean, I believe a lot that agents are now the new user, and why not let the LLM decide a little bit more than just blindly fuse two different result sets without actually reasoning over them, which is your point, Dmitry. So, and latency, cost, yes, and I'm coming from a background where I've been involved in very large-scale projects, and I always think about this, but a lot of the AI-related use cases and search-related use cases are not operating at like any type of scale. And your point, Atita, I think is great, because users are now more used to waiting a little bit more and expecting a little bit better response. So yeah, good. It's boring, but yeah, largely agree.
Okay.
You have your own.
I have my own mic, yes. Everyone's been trying to hand me mics, but... so I think we're coming to the end of our discussion, and I think the question, do we still need traditional search when AI can do everything, which was deliberately provocative. We still need traditional search, so that we can all agree. And in fact, we're now able to do better with traditional search because we have these new techniques. We haven't quite worked out the detail yet. This problem with comparing vector search results and keyword results is a classic one. It's chalk and cheese. But we have some potential ways forward. And I think, from what your panel has said, we're not quite as terrified. I love, Dmitry, the fact that you close your laptop for 3 days. That shows you were affected. we're not maybe quite as worried as maybe we were a few years ago. And the fantastic thing is we're now seeing a world where we have all these new techniques available. If we can just figure out how to use them and also how to support our agentic overlords that will be coming real soon now, I think we can see a fantastic path forward. So I'd like to thank all my panelists today, Dmitry Khan, Atita Arora, Joe Kristian Bergum, and Jenny Sukhodolskaya. Yes. Jenny. Please give them a huge round of applause. And I'm sure if you wanted to discuss these topics any further, our panelists are around through Buzzwords, and we'll be very happy to see you. And especially that there are two here who happen to have a stand next door, which they may have mentioned earlier. And yes, people will be happy to talk. So please, I'm Charlie Hull, I'm the Search Juggler. I look forward to seeing you all later. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.